The 6610 Ford. I was working on this loader, and the last day that I was doing some welding, there is more to do, but to finish putting this together, I had fire blanket wrapped all the way around the hood of the tractor, and there was a fuel leak that it was dripping down there where you see the dark spots at, and a slug of hot steel landed on that. I had put the torch away and did not know that it was lighting up. I didn't have any problems for several weeks. Anyways, when I put the torch away, it must have been a hot enough day. It come up the side of the tractor, and it caught this on fire, and it caught some of the wiring on fire and some hoses. And the fan shroud melted in this intake line. So now we're going to be heating these fittings up. You'll hear me say it several times. This is what it lets it seal over this fitting to melt it over it. Before you start heating this fitting and putting hoses on, you clean it with a wire brush, the fitting, the grip ring fitting there, the coupling, hand brush, and get all the old hoses off of it that had melted. Get it nice and clean. You'll see here real quickly that it is starting to insert, but it really needed more chamfering. You just have to keep heating it up and pushing out in and reheat it again, sometimes several times, for it to slide up in there and insert. I will admit I could use a much better soldering torch than this one. But you do get the idea. You just keep heating this fitting up, not the hose, just the fitting. That way it warms it up and helps it insert. These fittings I had, there were two return fuel lines on top of the injector that needed to be replaced, and also this is a return line or a heater line that goes right off the manifold. It loops around and bolts right up to a small heater that goes in the back side of the intake manifold. When I zoom in on this, you'll see the ripples in the hose. That's where the grip rings on the fittings have sealed the hoses. This here is that vacuum fuel line that a heater is in that intake manifold. I'm not sure how it works. If it's like air that flows that way, but it bolts up there. I had to buy that heater as well. Thank goodness New Holland had one. But as we get going here, there's going to be more fittings. Now I'm sizing up the length of the hose that I need. I want to make it just a little bit long, about a ½ inch long. That way it's got some bow in it. And it pushes and stays in place on top of that T that it goes over. The hose goes over it on top of the injectors. These are just fuel return lines. Like I say, you put it together, you need a little bow in there so that it stays tight up against the fittings and it doesn't ever shrink. This is another one of the fuel return lines. This one's right off the injector. And I do believe that is exactly where it was leaking from the beginning. So that's what started the whole problem right there. And that one got fixed as well. Oh, made a mistake. I put the vice grips under sideways and it grooved it just a little bit. From now on I need to go across it this way. So my fix is to sand it flat as I can. It took a little while, but it's gone. That one's good enough to put back on. It's got to have a copper washer, like a brake line. It folds on this one. I got to finish it too. Need a flat surface. 150 grit sandpaper. This is wet sandpaper. You can sand with it with like soapy water for wet sanding on metal. They call it wet sandpaper for wet sanding paint on automotive vehicles when necessary. It's getting there. It's almost gone. Almost. A little bit more. Let me see what I'm doing. Just trying to keep it as flat as possible on that iron. And square. Almost. I'm not putting any pressure, just a little, very little. I'm putting some more on it. Right, it's right there where it's been sanded on for a little while, and you know, some of the grit is gone. That's good right there. Good enough. Won't do that again. If it won't tighten up, I'm gonna have to get newer washers that are thicker. These are the copper washers, but I'll have to get thicker ones if it won't bolt down right. Again, just heating the fitting up after I've chamfered the inside and got all the shavings away from inside. Heat this fitting up so that it's hot. I don't want to touch it with bare fingers. You can solder with it, it's that hot. And then just getting it broke in and shaping it. Now, I'm not going past that first ring. I'm just going to leave it like that and let it cool down. I got to do both ends. When I finish this one, I'll have it on. I'm going to flip it around and reshape this one so it starts. And then I'm going to finish putting this together. And then we're going to put it on the tractor. Instead of breaking that banjo loose on that injector, I want to try slipping it on the banjo bolted to the tractor. I might pull it away so it's not on the injector itself, but there's two more tubes that are good that didn't get damaged, and I don't want to break them loose. The reason I'm doing that is just it'd be easier to get started when I'm by myself over there holding it like this. There's a little bit in there. You can see where I let that cool down, and that's why I didn't want it buckling on me if it was still hot. It's warm, I can touch it, but it's not super hot like this fitting is on this side. After it cools down though, it's hard to get it off there. I don't know if you can see up in there, but it's funneling right in there. And so this one, you can see daylight all the way through there. So what I'm gonna do is warm this up. I gotta stop for a minute. Hands are getting numb. Too many years of swinging hammers, and I have to take a break once in a while. But I'll continue finishing this, and I'll do it to the tractor. Remember, them are copper washers that are top and bottom. They're crackled, but it won't get any hotter. This fitting here is going to be a little, it won't get as hot, I don't think, because it's connected and the heat transfers to the other parts. Like I said, it's got copper top and bottom washers. You see, that's getting melted. More, I want up in there more. I think I'm gonna have to take this loose and warm up the banjo. I want it all the way up against the bottom. Now I got about another 32nd to 1/8 of an inch. That way it tightens up on that, on those rings. Now this might be hot. Now see, it's cool, and that's why I'm having troubles. I can't get it on all the way. Okay, yeah, be careful here. I got a copper washer. And I gotta be careful, I got another one here. Right there. Don't want to lose those. Right now, see, these fittings are still good. Almost. It's in there. See, it's up against the shoulder. I'll let that cool down before we... That should fit in there perfect too. Time that's all bolted up. Let that all cool down before we finish putting everything back together. Then I'll be done with this. I got more to do. After that's all bolted up, then I got this. There's a fitting that goes right here, it bolts up to here, and I'm gonna have to, they no longer offer it. New Holland or Ford. There may be somebody out there that's making it, but I don't know where it's at. And I'm gonna have to reduce from 3-inch, well actually 2 7/8 outside to 2-inch outside. It's going to be like a funnel that turns down into this. And then I'm going to have to use a rubber boot that mounts onto here and then mounts onto here. I got to build that. I want to make it out of paper first and then tape it together. And then that'll be my pattern for a piece of steel. Muffler tubing is what I'm going to use. And then I got the wiring I need to work on. And I'll look at some more things. If you haven't been told yet, what happened here is it accidentally caught on fire. And I'm glad I caught what damage it did. There's some hoses to fix. The water hoses are okay. It was in fuel lines and the electrical wiring up in the front, and some of the sensors and the fan shroud. I'll get to all that here before the day's over. Back to work.